Hello and welcome to AXSchat. We're delighted that we have Gregg Vanderheiden with us today. Gregg is the genius behind. Hello, we've got a new face online.
We also have Carlo joining us.
Hi. Okay. We're doing well today. So, Gregg, you're the guy that thought up the concept of GPII, which is the global public inclusive infrastructure, and you've been working on a number of projects related to making accessibility something that is less niche, more global, more flexible, more personalizable. Terrible concatenation of words there. For a number of years, you're also heavily involved in the W3C. I pity your mailbox. I know you're working on the WCAG list as well. So welcome. It's great to have you with us. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing, particularly around GPII?
Okay. Well, the GPII came out of actually the work we were doing on the web. But as we watched more and more of our environment acquiring digital interfaces, we were finding those people who couldn't use digital interfaces and it started on the web and on computers, but on travel, education, healthcare, almost every aspect of life now. And so for those people who can't use the digital interfaces, it basically means that we're building a world that's excluding them more and more. And so we began trying to explore how we could go about doing something that would help. And we found there were three basic problems. One was that even when there were solutions that would help people or allow them to be able to access ICT, information and communication technologies, that they didn't know about it. So one of the things we had to do is to make sure that people were able to find a solution, and especially for people on the edges. We call them the tails of the population. The solutions may exist, but it's very hard for the people who create them to reach out and find the users, and they're dispersed. So the first one is, if there's a solution anywhere in the world, we ought to be able to find it. The person should be able to find it. The second one was that there aren't solutions for everyone. And so we needed to make it easier to create solutions for those people that for which there aren't solutions. And again, the biggest problem are the people on the edges. But also we have a new problem, and that is cross-platform. We have people who can access a computer with an operating system, but when they go to school, that's not what they find. They find that in different classes, they have to use different computers, different technologies, different operating systems, and they go through life. And so we also had to figure out how to create solutions and help foster the creation of solutions that worked across platforms so that people would be able to use whatever technologies they encountered. And then the third one is what you have referred to as auto-personalization, and that is that people have solutions, but when they go out, they go to school, and they go to run into computer after computer, they run into different technologies when they're traveling, and if the solution is on one machine in one place, that doesn't let them go out and participate and to actually exist or work, get an education, etc. So the goal was to figure out how to make it so that wherever anybody went, whatever technology they encountered, that technology would change into a form that they could understand and use. And then when they walked away, it would change back to the form it was before. And that's what we call auto-personalization, is the ability to have it do that. And key to that is it has to do that for people who don't understand computers. They don't understand how to set them up, how to turn them on, how to configure them, and all that kind of thing. It just has to be easy. It has to be simple, and has to work on whatever they encounter.
And it sounds simple, and at the front end, it's designed to be simple, but there's an enormous amount of complexity in the background in order to the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say, and that's all about interoperability and making sure all of this stuff just works together. So understanding what the different types are, how they cross over, how they interact, and the various different options to enable people. So I've been following the stuff that you've been doing for a number of years now, and I love the concept of being able to walk up to things and have them change to my preference. I went out and bought the NFC ring and all of the other toys to try and make that happen. But I think that the reality is we've still got some way to go before that happens. But the overall components are there. We have a lot of stuff in the cloud. We've got databases. We've got technology that is capable of being personalized. What do you see as being the biggest challenges to getting to the point of allowing automatic personalization?
Well, the first thing to realize is that everything about the GPII is infrastructure. That is, it doesn't do it itself. It just enables other people to be able to build on it. It's like roads are great, but if you don't have any cars, the roads don't actually do anything except they make it easy for transportation and people to create products and as well as services. And so the GPII, the auto personalization, makes it so that if products have flexibility, you can easily have them automatically change to match your particular needs. But if the products don't have the flexibility in the first place, there's nothing to automatically adjust, right? So the thing that's really enabled this to happen has been the incorporation of accessibility features into ICT, and as we have more of them. But one of the problems we've seen is that even with all of the features in there, people don't use them. It's too complicated, too hard, and so the trick is to try to figure out how to make it so that it's easier for them. For example, we had one where there was a woman we were talking to, an elderly woman, and she said, oh yeah, she used the computer, but she didn't use it anymore. And we said, well, why not? She said, well, I used to use it for Facebook with my friends and things like this, but one day I was sitting there and I heard the other room where the kids were saying, oh, the computer's all messed up for grandma again. And so she said, you know, I've had my time and now it's their time, so I just don't use the computer anymore. And it turned out that once it was set up for her, she could use it just fine, but she had no ability to set it up for herself, and she had no ability to unset it up for herself when she was done. And we've seen this with other families where they husband and wife, and one of them needs to have it adapt and the other doesn't, and so the one ends up just not using it anymore because it's too much of a hassle. So the ability to have it automatically change. There's a lot of challenges, as you said. You have all the different assistive technologies, all the different access features, and you have to set them up. And the way auto personalization works is it just changes the settings the same way you would. It's just that it knows how to do it and it can do it instantly. Biggest challenge, getting all of the different AT and stuff onboarded. And eventually we'd like to have it built into operating systems. Mobile operating systems, for example, you can't build things into them because of their security model. So whereas you can do it on the computers, when it gets into the mobile, that's going to have to be done by the companies themselves.
Thank you. Deborah, I know you have a question.
Yes, Gregg, thank you for being on the program today. We were very honored to have you. I, like Neil, have been following your work for many, many years, and I remember and have quoted you saying something years ago at an AAATE conference in Boston, and you started the conference. I think you were the keynote, and you started it with an eloquent speech, but something you said really stuck with me, and that you said one thing that we're going to have to do a better job of is stop eating our young and really be more welcoming to all the generations that want to come in and really be part of these solutions. And I remember at the time thinking, oh, you are so right. And I've quoted you many times since then, because I think as we think of all these moving parts and, you know, all the things that need to be done, making sure that all the stakeholders are included in the most meaningful way, I just think that continues to be one of the most important things that we need to work on. And so your work with raising the floor, and as Neil noted, the work that you're doing, the global work and the W3C, and all the moving parts that we're talking about with the auto personalization, do you still see that as a problem, that we are so busy? And this is my assessment. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I think sometimes people have fought so hard to be included that sometimes they want to shut the door behind them when they come, and it's like, okay, all right, now I'm in, let's get to work, instead of remembering that, of course, it's all going to work better when all of the different generations, all of the generations, including people that are my age, are in the conversation, but that that we're not dominating, that we're letting the younger generations in, and the developers and the content people and all the different moving parts that are part of this very complex problem we're trying to solve. So I was just wanted to throw that out at you, because you have always inspired me.
Yeah, the eating your young comes about primarily in terms of, or initially in terms of grants, where somebody's asked to review other grants, and they somehow feel that there'll be more money for them if they can just critique the hell out of everybody else. And in fact, what it ends up with is the whole field ends up not having the growth. And instead of helping people by talking about their proposals in constructive ways and ways that can be made stronger,
We seem to have lost Gregg for a second. Let's hope we can get him back. Gregg, are you there? I'm hoping Gregg will rejoin us in a second. I think that the idea that
While we wait for him,
is going to save more money for you is actually narrowing the field. I totally agree with what Gregg was saying there. We need to be more collaborative.
Yeah, we do, and we need to welcome others into the conversation and not just assume that we have all the answers. And I thought that was a good example that Gregg. I see that Gregg's resetting, so he should join us back again. But I just thought it was a really good point that he made, and that we continue to see that as a problem. He was looking at it from the position of the grants and tearing each other down, so that, you know, everybody gets hurt. The community gets hurt. The industry gets hurt. And as you were noting with this, of the work that we have to do and the complex nature, sometimes this actually hurts the industry and the people that we're trying to serve. So I think that's one part of his work that has always impressed me. So Gregg has joined us again. So
we hope.
Yes, and I have no idea what happened there, but
suddenly the technology.
The internet disappeared, so that should took care of that. But yes, so basically the lesson was that by trying to raise themselves up by critiquing others, it in fact just brought the whole field down, and there was less funding for everybody. But I think that in the broader sense of what you were talking about, the same thing can happen just in people talking about people. Some people feel that the more they talk about their programs instead of other programs, the better known they will be. And yet, you know that the people that you know and respect the most are the ones that are always there talking about what everybody else is doing. And we are a community, and work together and It's only when we work together. And the whole thing about the GPII was that we take everybody. It's a global, public, and it's an inclusive infrastructure. And it's something that we all work on together, that none of us are going to be able to do it. But together, we can really bring these things together. And so when you look at the unified listing, it's listing everything that everybody else does. The developer space, it points, it doesn't say come here, it says if you come here, we will point to wherever else on the web the work is going on. And so the GPII is meant to be an infrastructure to allow all of us to be able to work together more easily.
Great, and I think that's absolutely the crux of what we're trying to achieve with AXSchat, is to bring people on, talk about what everyone else is doing, because we know we can't do it alone, and it's really through trying to build communities, which is the nub of what we're doing in social media, and it is very powerful for that, that we can hopefully enthuse the people on the outlying reaches of the community to come on in, and start contributing. We're seeing people start to set up projects and get engaged that maybe wouldn't have done before, and also engaging across different disability groups, which is gratifying. So we're seeing people from the deaf community working with people from the blind community, rather than staying siloed. So that's positive for us. And I know Antonio's got a question as well.
I do. No, the topic of accessibility and digital inclusion is something that is at the heart of the work we do. And we know that in the end, people like to use tools that everybody use. So my question is, today is quite, we are able to see companies like Pokemon Go, Snapchat, and others. We are able to see some applications having a high level of success, good design, and having people on board quite fast in the consumer side. Why is still sometimes so difficult to apply that same methodology when we are trying to design service for inclusion and for people who really need simple services to access, just to be part of the whole conversation and be part to join the online community?
I think that one of the nice things about our modern technologies is that it's multimodal. So it allows people who communicate in different ways to be able to find channels that work for them. Again, people who are deaf and rely primarily on sign languages has been one of the biggest barriers. But we're getting close. We haven't gotten there yet, to the point where we'll be able to translate that in the same way we're able to translate other languages. And when we do, that's going to be just a huge step forward. But I think that being able to find people using the internet to communicate and to connect people from all different parts of the world, what we're doing now with language, and hopefully again soon including sign language, I think really helps in this. And this is going to be, I think, really key. Trying to figure out how to sort out the chaff, the wheat from the chaff, if you will. There's so much out there now. And I think that things like AXSchat are really great because it's curated information. And so people can find clear information. The same kinds of things as you were talking about before with GPII, the DeveloperSPace is designed to make it so that it's easy for people to find the best places. So you can come and then find links out to the best sources of information out and around on the web. They're there. The hardest part is finding them sometimes, and hopefully by forming a network, they find one of us and we point, everybody points to the other ones, the key ones, and that's that sharing, that not it's all about me, but it's all about us, and here's our other connections. That's, I think, what makes it powerful.
I agree. I agree. And I know that, Greg, you were talking about, I don't know if it's possible technically. I know we were having some fun technical challenges this morning, but you were going to try to do a demo of an auto personalization.
Sure.
I don't know. We don't know if it'll work, but we can give it a whirl, right?
Okay. Well, they have a screen share here, so let's just.
We'll all cross our fingers and toes, right?
So, do you see a
Windows
screen? Okay. So, I have some in my hand, little things that look like cards that you'd used in your hotel room. And they're still NFC cards. And so imagine this is a computer at a library or in a computer lab someplace, and they have different people come up and use it. Now, Alice uses an on-screen keyboard. And so when she comes up, you just put the little thing on there, and instantly up pops an on-screen keyboard. And it's the size and shape and the configuration that Alice needs. When she's done, she just keys in, and it's gone. Elod comes along, and he needs an enlarged screen. Now, the problem with him is that he can't see until it's enlarged, so he has trouble turning on the enlargement feature. But again, with auto personalization, when he comes up, it automatically keys in, and it gives him the type of enlargement, etc., that he needs. And then when he's done, he can just key out, and instantly goes away. Another person needs to have both a darker background and larger text, and so they key in, and they get both the darker backgrounds, the highlights, the high contrast, and larger print, and then also a nice large cursor. But again, when they're done, they can just key out, and everything goes exactly back to normal. Now, one of the things that we want to be looking at also is the ability to deal with people having cognitive barriers. So Sven, he has trouble with Windows. And so he got Windows 10, and what he wanted to do was to be able to use it, but he was using Windows 7, and so he's having trouble using the computer, and so he wants to be able to have it. So we have the ability to take Windows 10 and to be able to automatically change it into another form, so that he can have it so that it looks exactly like what he would like to have. And so we can have different computers that then would be able to change and be able to work for different people. One of them can make it into something that's really very, very simple for somebody who's older, where the entire screen becomes nothing but a blank screen and just a few icons. Another one, actually, as I mentioned before, takes Windows 10 and makes it look like Windows 7, so that elders who were using the computer successfully and then no longer can are able to automatically switch and be able to use it, and things like that. So this is just some of the different things that we're able to do now.
So if someone that is listening us at this and wants somehow, oh, I would really like to have that solution for me, or for, let's say, someone that is delivering training for people in some community, helping them to acquire basic digital skills, how can they have access to that technology?
Well, the unified listing is available today. It's just ul.g.
Windows sign in password edit protect. Start English.
Excuse my NVDA jumping in to comment on things. You can unified listing is ul.gpii.net, or you just go to gpii.net, and then from the home screen you can get to all of the different parts. But the unified listing and the DeveloperSPace are available today. The auto personalization, we're just now finishing up We've begun deploying it in American job centers as part of a pilot program. And then later this year, we're going to be doing it in community colleges and libraries. I'd say about 18 or 24 months from now, be available to the general public. So we're in the process right now, as I said, of building in all the security and privacy measures, and also making it so that it'd be able to scale.
Okay. Well, one of the questions I've got is obviously understanding that people have these preferences is one thing, and being able to use NFC, which is fantastic, to trigger those easily is great. But there's another part to that, and that's capturing the preferences in the first place. How are you going to do that? Because that's the bit that we all struggle with, is getting people to know about the program, or the ability to make those changes in the first place. Is there some kind of marketing campaign going on? Are there people helping capture preferences, etc.? Because I think that's going to be really key to making this work.
Well, one of the things that we have is, and we originally thought of the same kind of approach, that you start off by going through and having everybody sit down and you try and capture their preferences and stuff like this. But we actually found a couple of additional or different methods that actually seem to work better. One of them is we start off with what we call a snap set. So if I've got one here, you can see. And it's just it says dark background, larger text, the dictionary. And so we had a number of different cards. Here's one for just, larger text. And here's one for, it says read to me and things. And the people can just take the cards and try them. And so you can kind of, it's like going to a store and trying on different dresses or suit coats or something like that. It's not that everything's going to be a perfect fit, but what it does is it lets you quickly try things on and see what kinds of things would help. And one of the things we found that was really amazing is how many people who just said, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know the computer could do that. People who were afraid of the computer would sit down and start using some of these little snap sets, and very quickly see that it did all sorts of things and that it would do what they wanted. And this sort of feeling of agency had tremendous power for them. And then they would, look around and say, well, what I really want is, and then you start off to work from something that would be off-the-shelf set to something that's personalized. And then we also have something where we're working on explore tools, where you get something so that it gets the computer within your range. Okay, remember, if you have low vision, you can't explore until you get it larger. But if it's not exactly the right size, it doesn't matter if it's in your range. Then you can begin to explore and try different kinds of things and see how they work. But let me go back to screen share. I want to show you one other different thing here that, for example, people aren't aware necessarily that you can do things. So can you see the screen again?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is the screen. And so here's one for Elaine. And we're using these little cards, but imagine you're in an older home for seniors, and you give them cards and they forget them. You tell them, passwords, and they don't remember them. But you could have something where they would come up and even just in a small center, you would come up and just when they sat down, it would use facial recognition as their key. But anyway, they come up, and instead of this, when they come up to see it, the screen automatically changes into something very simple like this. And so as you see, there's nothing. There's no scroll bars, there's no menus, there's no task bars. It's just a blank white screen with 3 icons. It's a touch screen. It says press mailbox for mail, and they click. And what do they get? They get something that looks like mail. And it says touch them, and it opens up. And it, again, now they read it. And there's only 3 things on the screen. It says reply, keep, or throw away. When they hit reply, it doesn't jump around and then tell you to write your reply on the top of the email you just got, which makes no sense to them. But it brings up something else and it says, sure, love to, and then, I did this and the person called me up, my mother actually, and she said, I don't know what I did. I erased. I read to write you an email and I erased it. I don't know what I did. And what she did is she had hit send. It took me a while to figure out what it was, but she hit send. And of course, as soon as you hit send, what happens to the email? It gets deleted, right? It just disappears. But you can actually have things that make sense. So when you hit send, the letter goes down and the little truck takes it away. And so now they know that you got the email. And again, photos, you click and they get pictures up, and you can click on them and they just get large and you can step through them. You know, contacts. And again, nothing ever goes away. There's not, oh, you have to go back, you have to launch another application or something. It's all very straightforward. And then it looks the same way on any computer that you go to. And when she's done, she just keys back out. Now, the important thing to note is that this is not a special program. It's just a different interface. This is Gmail. This is just Google Photos and stuff like this. So you can have it so that you can take things that would otherwise be very complicated and very simple. And then when she's done, keys out, and it all goes away. And now it's ready for the kids again to play on the computer. So these are the kinds of things that are possible today. And these are just different programs that that you can set up to allow people to be able to use their computer. And when they discover them and they begin seeing that there's different ways, they begin to understand that they're not too stupid to use computers because they can use that. And they begin to realize, well, I can't use some programs, but I can others. And then they start looking for programs they can use. And now we've got them doing what we need to get them doing. We need to get them to think that, yes, they can use these technologies as long as they have the right interface. And then they start demanding the right interface, whether it's somebody who's older or somebody who has lower vision, or they can't hear, or they have trouble using the keypads, or the buttons are too small. We need to get them into the, well, it's not my fault. It's the thing isn't set up right. And making it so that it's, if we can make it so that it's easy for them to then set it up, easy for them to go try different things, then that's going to be the key.
Yeah.
And do you have examples where the users end up giving suggestions, oh, you could do this or you could that, in terms of process of feedback?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, interestingly, in the unified listing, which is this like catalog of all the different communication aids and interface aids, at the bottom of every product, it says place for people to say, oh, here's a technique for using this. If it won't work with this, here's what you can do. And next to it is another one that says, I wish I had the following feature on this product. And back in the search, if you search and you don't find the product that you want, there's a place right there to say, this is what I would like to see. Why can't there be a product like this? And those then go back to the developer space and they get posted as challenges so that people are saying, well, gee, what else do we need to be doing? We get that direct feedback. So the whole idea is to get this to be driven as a pull, the consumers pulling the features rather than just the developers pushing out what they think the solutions are and what they think the features are that users should want. We want to try and flip that.
Okay, that's great. We've reached the end of our half hour, and it's been fantastic talking to you, and great to get a demonstration of the personalization features. They've come a way since I last saw them. Thank you very much, Gregg Vanderheiden.
You're welcome.
Yes, and thank you, Barclays, for supporting us too. We always really appreciate your support, and thank you for being on today, Gregg.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you.